do not use grades as a benchmark for mental health. So a kid could be a straight A student and have thoughts of suicide and actually want to and attempt suicide.
Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge, a mental health trailblazer, founder of the Global Institute of Children's Mental Health, and media expert who is changing the way we view and treat children's mental health. Her work has helped thousands reverse the most challenging conditions: ADHD, anxiety, mood, Lyme, and PANDAS using proven holistic therapies. She is often featured on dozens of media outlets. Lots of betrayals that we talk about, and today we're talking about the betrayal of a special needs parent. If you're a parent or guardian of a child with special needs, stop what you're doing and pay close attention because you're going to get so much value out of this episode. I'm having a conversation with my dear friend and mental health trailblazer, Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge. She's going to be giving you so much validation along with actionable tips to navigate friendships with more clarity and ease. Here we go. Okay, everybody, you are in for such a special treat today. We actually have one of my dear friends. Yes, I dragged her on the show. You know how we talk about all different types of betrayal of a family member, partner, friend, coworker, self. Well, today we're talking about betrayal. It's a different type of betrayal. It's the betrayal of a special needs mom. So if you have a child with special needs, or you know someone with special needs, or you know of a child, period, you are going to absolutely love this talk. You're about to meet my dear friend, Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge. So welcome, Dr. Roseann.
I am so excited to spend time with you, Dr. Debbie. You truly are one of my favorite people on the planet, and you are my go-to vault of the secrets. So,
and right there, thank you. I feel the exact same way. And that is so in the world of betrayal, knowing that a secret is safe, knowing that it stops right here. That is what allows someone to heal and feel safe. And I am the absolute same for you. But I'm glad you said that, because all of our listeners, all of our viewers, they are healing from some kind of betrayal, and knowing that just demonstrating that whole idea of you could tell me anything and it goes no further than right here is so important when we are rebuilding trust. So thank you, my dear friend. So let's get into it. Let's first tell me a bit about your story, and we're going to dive into what happens when you have a special needs child and the betrayal that you experience.
Yeah. So, I'm a mom first, and I am a psychologist. I'm somebody who works with, happens to work with kids with anxiety, depression, neurodevelopmental disorders like autism and ADHD, special needs moms of kids who are typical but might be having a hard time. We now know mental health, nobody's immune from it. And so we've all become very close in the world, because we used to think it was something that didn't happen to you, it happened to somebody else. But now kids across the globe are struggling, and 14% of kids 14 and up in the world have a mental health problem. So this is just not a US problem. And in the US, 50% of kids are not getting enough help in mental health, 50%. So we are struggling,
I want to stop you right there, because I remember growing up, it just didn't seem like it was that prevalent. We didn't hear so much about this.
Yeah.
What do you attribute some of this to? I mean,
It's such an important question, because it's one that almost everybody asks me. And did kids in the time that we grew up in the 70s, did they have less problems? The answer is yes. And it's not because we are better diagnostically. I think we're terrible diagnostically. It took 12 years for the autism American Academy of Pediatric guidelines to even get updated. And in that time, it grew like 1,600%. And there was the old guidelines were there. So why? Why are there more special needs? Why are there more kids with mental health issues? It's definitely a convergence of things that have sort of created this perfect storm. And it's definitely multifactorial. So number one, we're a very high stress society, and it's not one-off stressors, it's compounded stressors. We're experiencing more mothers are experiencing stressors. We have older mothers. That's one part of it. We have poor food quality. We are not getting enough sleep. There's overuse of technology. Genetic mutations are increasing. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on all at once. And that means that, we do have way more autism. We have a dramatic increase in anxiety and depression that occurred before the pandemic, but has really gone up now. So, 2011 data says that 1 in 2 children in the US have a physical or mental health problem. I don't even know what that is now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's staggering. So how do you know if it's, let's say, anxiety from just, let's say, overstimulation or too much going on, and when it's something more?
Yeah. So first of all, we all have stress, and there's the autonomic nervous system has a stress response, right? So we're relaxed, we're in a parasympathetic state, we're stressed, we go into a sympathetic dominant state. That's normal. When is it a problem, right? How do we know the difference? Well, compounded stressors or clinical, anxiety, things start interfering with your daily life, just like with adults, right? But with kids, you're going to look for differences, mostly in somatic. So we're going to look for things like gastrointestinal, which is the number one symptom you'll see with anybody of any age with anxiety. You're going to look for sleep problems. You're going to look for grinding your teeth. You're going to look for headaches. So those are all that. And then you're going to look for changes, right? Is your kid all of a sudden pulling away from you, more irritable? And yes, people will say, well, how do I know that when it's just normal teenage behavior? Well, it is normal to a degree, but as you and I are going to get into, we're both moms whose kids have had mental health issues at one point or another. And it's just different, especially when you have more than one kid. And people can be very dismissive of mental health issues because, please, this is one of the most important statements I'm going to make in this episode, is that do not use grades as a benchmark for mental health. So a kid could be a straight A student and have thoughts of suicide and actually want to attempt suicide. So structure, routine, a need to please, a desire to do well can really be very motivating for kids, and keep them on track. And it could be a total hot mess at home, or internally.
That's so powerful, because I think so many parents are they're looking at the grades saying, well, there can't be anything wrong because they wouldn't be pulling those grades. They just wouldn't have those grades.
Right.
That's really, really interesting.
Yeah. So we have this big increase. Kids can look like they're holding it together, but you might be seeing these changes. You're not quite sure. I'm going to tell you that almost every mother will tell you their instinct was something was up. Mm-hmm. Something was different. You're not going to go to your kid and say, are you depressed? They might not even know that. Yeah. They might not even want to tell you that. You might want to say, I've noticed like you're not even coming down for dinner. Like, tell me where this struggle is going on with you. Like, don't ask yes or no answers, questions that, give you an illicit or yes or no, and try to do activities with your kids. The more you do physical activities, the more their mouth moves and you're able to get information out of them.
I always found that to be the case with some of my kids, and everybody knows I have 4. There would be like driving. Driving would be so great because they're not looking at me. They weren't looking at me. Yeah. And somehow that made them feel freer to speak. So I knew I would get the best stuff when I was driving them somewhere. I know. Or driving them home.
My Max said to me one time, he's 17 now. He must have been like 12. He was like, oh, and by the way, I know your strategy. you ask me the big questions in the car.
It works. It really does.
It does. And I was like, yes, I do, because that's the only time you talk to me, you know?
Right. That's how you know. So I'm kind of getting a sense of two different betrayals.
Sure.
One is a betrayal of expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is an extra set of things that you're dealing with that you just didn't count on.
No.
And then it's the betrayal of maybe how you're treated by other people. So let's talk about both of those.
Yeah. Well, as a mom who, my older son, Max, developed a disease called PANDAS. And basically it's when infectious disease or toxin trigger causes a misdirected immune response, and it turns on overnight for some people, but dramatic onset of psychiatric issues. So he's bitten by a tick at 22 months. So I can't really say what he was like, but all I can say is he was damn smart, freakily so, and was very intense. So I knew that part of that, right? And so when you have a kid, right? I mean, this many years ago, 20 years ago, my husband and I did detoxes to get pregnant. We were so ahead of the curve. You have an expectation. My kid's going to go to Montessori school. We're going to do this. We're going to have parties at my house. We're going to live in a neighborhood where everybody's so fabulous and want to hang out with us. Well, that didn't happen. And that is a grieving process, really, Debbie. Like that's hard stuff. And I think a lot of people have that same experience. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I mean, I have some moms that have had 3 kids with autism, not 1, not 2, but 3, more than once. I've had that happen. That's really, really hard. And then the other side of that, as I kind of said, like you move into a neighborhood and you think everybody's going to embrace you, is that as a special needs parent or a kid, particularly when your kid has behavioral issues that are very observable, maybe aggressive speak or has emotional outbursts, you're going to get some pretty heavy duty social rejection. I can tell you that I've experienced that. And I talk about this frequently because I'm always like, these moms come, right? I talk to them and they're like, how could it be that this happens to me? And I'm like, hey, even Dr. Roseann has had this happen. And out of everything that's happened, of course, your kid's suffering is the worst, but the social rejection and isolation was not anything that I ever anticipated, nor did I, think that my best friend essentially would betray me over this.
And I want to get into that because that's something, first of all, it's, you would never do that. So how do you ever see that coming? And in the world of betrayal, I mean, people just say these comments come from all over. And I found even when it comes to relational betrayal, I mean, I'll never forget a friend of mine just really wanted to see how I was doing. And she sat me down and she looks at me, I tell her my story and I'm so upset. And she looks at me and she said, Debbie, I am so glad I'm not you. And I think she was, the intention was to make me feel better, but people they don't know.
They put their stuff on you, man.
Whoa. And that was, I mean, how do you even respond to something like that? So, so especially this is a really good friend of yours, right? And then they're not accepting and you're feeling betrayed because, and I always define betrayal as it's the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And the rule, spoken or unspoken in that friendship, is we have each other's back. We're there for each other with the families, with everything.
Well, you know me, it's spoken. So, and I think what's really, really hard is, I had all kinds, every rejection is a betrayal, Debbie. So you have, people that know me, I put in this pool, we call it the MTV Cribs pool.
I've been there. It truly is.
I put it in for Max. I put it in because I knew nobody was going to come and play with him because he was impulsive. And And I'm glad I put it in, because guess what? People came to play with him, and we didn't really get too many reciprocal invites, but I was like, I'm going to create this thing where every Friday we have a pool party, and I'm going to keep it structured. I'm going to keep it positive. And, when you have a kid who's difficult, I always want to say you want to be a parent whisperer. You want to set them up for success, give them the tools. Yes, I know I'm a psychologist, but I'm a mom too. And so I did this. Right. And there were just so many weird things that would happen, from, the ladies at the bus stop that would openly talk about getting together and not invite me, which is so not Italian, um,
It's so not nice. I don't care where you come from.
Nice. Yeah. It's so not nice. And I'm such a warm, open person. And I did say, I'm never going to let this stop me from loving people. But I also said, what is my lesson here? And my lesson here was that I really needed to have a certain kind of friend. Like, my friends really had to be at my levels, like spiritually, value wise, of course. And you say, of course, I got friends with the same values, but do you? You know what I mean? Like my friend, who I would have considered one of my closest female friends, her husband had a set of values and beliefs that were incongruent with mine. And so it was like, there wasn't a respect on my end for him. And I think, moving forward, I've really got to have friends that I really admire both the people in the relationship. And you say, how is that possible? It's one thing if you have a friend who's like, listen, I don't like my husband, but he's a good provider. We do this, we that. It's a different story because they have a clear awareness of who that person is. This was not the situation. This is a person that every word out of their mouth was, let me check with X, her husband's name. Okay. And that's just not who I am. That's not who you are. Right. And I was like, I need friends, women friends that are more powerful. I need friends that have a generosity about them. Like, I got really clear on the things that were non-negotiables, even in my friendships. And I cleaned house. And I think that was really, really important. But I want, special needs moms of kids who have mental health issues to know, number one, this is surprisingly common. This is not something that is your feelings of sadness and isolation. I want to validate it because it happens to a lot of people. And the way to get around that is really to create your tribe. And you need a tribe. Like, you need help from other mothers who are right at the same place that you are. It's so important.
Yeah. What's so interesting about what you're saying is, I teach the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, and stage 3 is where everybody just gets stuck, right? And they can be glued there forever. And one of the things that always happens when they move from stage 3 to stage 4, where transformation begins, is typically a change in friendships. And it's when you are undergoing a transformation, it's almost like you could apply it to the same thing. You're very clear in what's not working, in who doesn't work for you as a friend. And it's very intentional that if they don't rise, they don't come. You're clear on who you are, what you want, what's meaningful to you, and you see people very clearly. And when you are clear that that's not them, that's when those friendships typically end. And the easiest part about that is when you already have other friends who demonstrate something different, right? So it's not like a surprise.
Right. No, definitely. And, I think a lot of times when you're stuck in that stage and you still have these people in your life that shouldn't be there, and you feel that, I always think about your stage 3 is the sort of feeling of stuck or trapped, right?
Definitely.
And that can so easily happen. And you may have had, like, I loved this person, but when I confronted her and said, you haven't invited me over in 3 years, and it's because you don't love and accept my kid. And she said, oh, our kids are just different. And I said, no, family is family. I mean, this is a friendship over 10 years. And this is, I call a pee on a toilet friend. Like, that's how close, right? This ain't nobody, like, every once in a while you get together and walk in the neighborhood.
And I would say, Dr. Roseann and I have put makeup on together, but we've never been in the bathroom together.
That's right. You know what I mean? That's like beyond year 5, Debbie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. We're getting there. We're getting there.
But you know, I mean, I joke, but it's like there's levels of friendship that are deeper, and in that confrontation, right? There's an awareness that happens to you that you really have to say, like, I have to stop making accommodations, right? So whether you have a kid that is like a sensory kid that's going to struggle at a birthday party, or maybe you have a teenager that needs to put their headphones on and their hoodie up because they're overwhelmed. And instead of making excuses, right? Because you don't have to make excuses. You can just say, "Hey, that's Amy, and she's just going to be hanging out there." And if somebody really cares about you, they might come to you and be like, "What's going on with Amy?" And be like, Amy's going through a hard time. And what I find really surprising is when you get an awesome person, they're like, oh, so is Joey. What are you doing? Let's talk about it. Oh, let's go get some coffee. That's when you know somebody's really got your back. I mean,
And you don't feel so alone. So now speak
totally.
to people who, because not everybody, or no one is like you. That's just, having said that, you are the type, you can go up to someone and say, hey, let me just tell you something.
Wait a second. Debbie, I dropped every crumb known to man during this time, and she didn't pick it up.
All right. She didn't pick up, but give us the crumbs. Give us the crumbs, because there are so many people who are like, I really want to do that, but I'm not comfortable there. How can I start? Give me some crumbs.
And guess what? Not everybody can do that. And that's okay, right? Like, don't forget I'm a trained therapist, and I'm that kind of person where if I can't lovingly have a conversation and really talk about what it is, I'm a great, strong communicator, it's going to eat me alive. So for another person, letting it go may actually be the right thing for you. But what, how do you open the door, right? So first of all, if you can't have a direct conversation about what is going on with that person, you gotta start with boundaries. So maybe it's about your boundaries first, right? So maybe you go to somebody's house and they start getting all over you about your kid or whatever. And maybe so this time, well, first of all, I wouldn't necessarily go, but maybe you have to go. Maybe it's your cousin, your son, whatever. You're going to go, hey, Diane, we're coming over. We're going to go for an hour. George is having a hard time. We're going to be over here on the side. Whatever it is that you want to do, don't explain yourself. Stop making excuses. Look for, ask for help. That's another way to kind of test relationships.
I love that because you're setting the expectation. You don't have to go into such great detail about just what went down before you got there, but that you're making it clear. This is the likelihood of what you can expect during this 1 hour, letting you know.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing that I have found to be really helpful is to ask for help. So I've been really surprised and actually formed some of the best relationships I've ever had by asking for help early in the relationship, or known to end a relationship when I asked for help and the kind of response I've gotten.
Give us an example.
Yeah, like, hey, such and such is having a hard time. Is there any way that you could come over with your kids and we can do something? No, sorry, I'm busy, whatever. And it's just really clear. Another thing is like, I've told this story before to you, is that anytime I make new friendships and they want to get together with the Hodges because we're as funny and fun as the Silvers.
That's the fun family right there, I'm telling you.
Right. And what I say to people is, and it's not as true anymore, but I let people know, Max used to really have a hard time. He's doing really great. Is I say, listen, I got a kid who has a hard time. He might get upset, or you might see an outburst from him. He might tell his dad to F off. I try to be extreme, and I get 1 or 2 responses, and the first happens probably 98% or more is a very awkward kind of laugh. And then the second response is, oh, that's great. My kid tells me to F off. Let's get together. Like they know how to joke around and be like, so what? Who cares? Right. So, and since I've done that, I do that right out of the gate. It's literally eliminated people that shouldn't be in my life, because I want full acceptance. That is really important for me to trust you. I need acceptance. I'm not, that's just important.
That's real. And I love that you're bringing it up early, because if that's who the person is, why wait to get there when,
Yeah.
your kids are forming deeper bonds? Why not just know this early on and just prevent the headache in the first place? I always want to know who I'm working with. So I may say something, have a conversation, and just drop, like a word like universe, just see how it lands, see if I know I'm talking to my people.
I know Dr. Debbie and I are always talking about that. She had her kids earlier than I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how I wish she was my mom friend, because she was doing her own thing too, but she had a pack of 4. So it was a lot easier because you could just do stuff with your pack, right?
It was very easy. Yeah. And here's the thing though, but I remember there was it wasn't special needs mom versus non-special needs mom at the time. It was working mom versus non-working mom. Yeah. So if any of you moms out there, parents out there have experienced this, and I've
experienced that too.
I was always working, but around my kids' schedules. I designed my business that way. But I would bring the kids to preschool, drop them off, and I'll never forget, there was a little cluster of the non-working moms judging me, and I heard it. And it was like, wow, just because this is my choice, you're shaming me for working as I'm this negligent mom. And I imagine you just feel like bad as a mom all the time because you're not sure you're doing it right. Now add a special needs scenario on top of that, and it's just that much more judgment, that more questioning, more all of that. And I can really see how if it's 2 moms with special needs kids, it just eliminates a lot of conversation.
You don't have to have that. And I also feel like when Max was younger and he was really behaviorally dysregulated and would get emotional upset, I also really noticed that people almost felt like it was a contagion and they didn't want their kids around it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember things being as divided when I was a kid. I remember kids playing in packs. It's just so different play and structure, and kids are lacking in skills, and parents are supervising the heck out of everybody, and and it's just an interest. It's so hard and on kids. It's hard on families. But, it's so important to find your friends. And even if you've been burned, join a special needs parent group, join the group of, anxious moms, with anxious kids, like find people who are there. Oh, they're there. They're Facebook groups.
I bet. So as we wrap up, this is such an interesting conversation. As we wrap up, what do you want to make sure every special needs parent knows?
First of all, we know you love your kid. You got to love yourself. And I want you to give up the shame that you have, and any embarrassment that anybody has ever made you feel. Just know it's their stuff and not yours. And, find that group of people who you really can just be yourself. Your kids can be themselves, and you can lift each other together. And like I said, I've been burned, and it's bound to happen. And my girlfriend said to me, Roseann, when it was happening early on, she's, I'm Christian, and she said, Jesus keeps people in your life, and he keeps them out too. And I was like, oh, that just helped me so much. Sometimes it's those little things. So just know that sometimes those people just aren't supposed to be there, and it's hurtful, and you should grieve it. But, trust again, find those people, and it will enrich your life on that spiritual, emotional, and social level that we all need.
I love that. And everybody, it's not just, as much as Dr. Roseann is giving profound advice as a special needs mom, you have to understand she is a trailblazer in the mental health field. Look her up. She's all over the place. And I'm blessed to have her as a dear friend. Where do we go to learn more about you and the amazing work you do?
Well, thank you for that, my trailblazing sister. You can find me, Dr. Roseann, anywhere. So it's DRROSEANN.com. I'm on that on TikTok and YouTube, Instagram and Pinterest. 2. And Facebook is Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge.
All over, all over. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your insight. I know, although this show is about betrayal and it's someone who's been betrayed by a family member, partner, friend, coworker, spouse, whatever. I know so many people here have this in their lives and have this scenario, and just they're not sure how to manage it and how to move through it. And you gave them such wisdom. So I think that was wonderful. Thank you for you and all the wonderful work you do.
Well, thank you, and sending a lot of love to my fellow mamas.
So if you've been feeling that social rejection and isolation, you're not alone. Unfortunately, it's pretty common when you're a parent of a special needs child. And I hope that through this conversation, you learned a few helpful ways to feel better. Stay in touch with Dr. Roseann by going to drroseann.com, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. Don't use grades as a benchmark for mental health. There's so much more to it than grades. So look at changes in your child in the areas of behavior, changes in the level of stress you're seeing, changes in food, sleep, digestive issues, and more. And there is no better expert to help you with all of that than Dr. Roseann. And don't forget to take care of yourself too. Setting some boundaries and asking for help are great places to start. Of course, I'm here to help too. Take a look at what's going on within the PBT Institute, where every day we're helping our members move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough so they can feel safe again, trust again, love again. Go to thepbtinstitute.com/join to learn more. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.